following is a Galactic Digital Studios production. It's the podcast that has been warning that automation is coming for 2 years now, and now it's come, and it never even wore rubber. Hope you enjoyed that load. This is News Desk, part of the Closing Tag Network. I am Raul Smith, Head of Development and Design over at Galactic Digital Studios. If you are in the market for video editing, graphic design, logo design, web development, or SEO services, visit galacticdigitalstudios.com. That's galacticdigitalstudios.com. Galactic Digital Studios, out of this world service at down-earth prices. So I'll be honest. I was having difficulty deciding what to talk about for the recordings for this week. I definitely wanted to talk about James Harden and that entire hot mess in the sports pod. I definitely wanted to talk about the importance of mental health breaks, both for your personal and professional life on Friday. But I could not figure out what I was going to talk about other than that. I've toyed with the idea of talking about Matthew Perry on the entertainment pod, rest in peace. Maybe I'll save that for a later time. I'd even thought about maybe discussing the asinine idea of signing Ric Flair to AEW, and I may still do that at some point. But then, our good old friend, the friend of the podcast, the friend of the working class, the owner of Tesla, SpaceX, and now Twitter X, which is what I'm calling it now until he firmly decides on a name, Elon Musk decided to drop a bombshell. And it's a bombshell that if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, sounds awfully familiar. In a recent interview event at Lancaster House, which is a government residence in the UK, the United Kingdom, Elon Musk, the egomaniacal billionaire who has single-handedly not only shown that the Brewster's Millions Challenge can have disastrous results, but has destroyed what was once a great social media platform in the process, and spare me the bullshit Musk stands about how Twitter is better than ever, it's so great and everything. Well, if it's so great, why is Elon Musk bleeding money as a direct result of it? And why does he need you to financially support it? Just saying. He has now exposed a deep and dark secret about the potentially bleak and dystopian future of the United States of America. Quote, "It's hard to say exactly what that moment is, but there will come a point where no job is needed. You can have a job if you wanted to have a job for personal satisfaction, but the AI would be able to do everything." End quote. Now, if only someone had been on this particular podcast episode saying the exact same fucking thing for 2 years. But that's not all. Musk would go on to say, quote, "We will have something that is for the first time smarter than the smartest human," end quote. Well, first of all, sounds to me like someone feels threatened. Second, this is something that has been a fear-mongering bullet point about computers and advancements in technology for years now. Never forget the classic 80s movie War Games, where a young kid competes against an advanced supercomputer to prevent World War III. By the way, great movie. Granted, the tech doesn't really hold up, but if they're going to continue on insisting on rebooting movies and TV shows like The Fall Guy, maybe that's one that they should consider. But hey, at least we have the Terminator series, right? Musk would continue, quote, "If you wish for a magic genie that gives you any wish you want and there's no limit, you don't have three wish limits nonsense. And it's both good and bad. One of the challenges in the future will be how we find meaning in life," end quote. And that has been a strong point that the elitists and the billionaires have been trying to drive home about a universal basic income or any semblance of socialism for decades now. And make no mistake, there is definitely cause for concern in that regard. But I also think that in order to move forward in society, we need a healthy dose of skepticism, yes, but we also need a healthy dose of faith. Faith in the human drive to not only better ourselves, but to help others. Yes, you are going to have your entitled and your people who are hopelessly and completely dependent on the system. You have that now with welfare and government assistance programs. I mean, that's been a thing for decades now. This is not a new phenomenon. And this is not a new development. And by the way, the majority of the people that take advantage of the system are good old homegrown white boys and white girls, not Hispanics. I know that flies in the face of everything you've ever been taught, but it's the truth. And I think we need to get past this preconceived notion that our tax dollars are paying for some single mother of five somewhere to get her nails done. That's not what I'm suggesting happens with this universal base income. The universal base income is designed to do exactly as the name suggests. Take care of the base needs to survive. Standard food, nothing fancy. I mean, you don't even get to go out to eat fast food under this particular system. Base shelter. So not really a homeless shelter, but rather an apartment of sorts. Not a great one. Definitely not a fancy one. But one that provides. Transportation to where you need to go. Obviously, if you're working, you definitely need transportation to and from work. Basic medical care, and yes, I would even throw in mental health care as well. I'll explain more on Friday why I think we as a nation need to take a serious look at the decaying mental health of our country. Then, as I outlined in the very first episode of this podcast, dating back to February of 2021, go peep the archives on YouTube and Facebook. If you don't believe me, links are in the description. If people want a fancier house or apartment or extra things, then you can earn those extra things by earning extra income. That can be either through a job or through running a small business. Now, the key to all this, and the biggest reason why I've said for the last 3 weeks why I'm not optimistic that anything will actually happen until it's already too late, is getting the billionaires to buy in on this. And by that, I mean getting them to foot the bill. Because you're not going to take tax dollars from average working people to create this system, because they're not going to have tax dollars to give. It's going to all have to come from the top. Elon Musk said in the same conference that it's up to us as a nation to stifle the growth of AI before the doomed prophecy comes true. This, of course, coming from the same guy that basically fired the entire staff at Twitter X not even a week after buying the damn thing. Forgive me if I sound skeptical that Musk is going to be one of the few billionaires that aren't buying in to just how much cheaper and easier it would be to replace humans with AI and automation if the option presented itself. Of course he would. Hell, he'd probably be in line right behind Jeff Bezos. And you know Jeff Bezos is already plotting to replace half of his workforce with automated robots. I mean, he barely gives a shit about employees or the quality of his products now. Walmart has already gone all but completely cashierless. If AI and automation presented them with a way to replace human shelf stockers with automated robots, you know damn well the Walton family would do it in a heartbeat. But there was one bit of good news to come from this conference in the UK. Before Musk's comments, there was a meeting between representatives from the world's biggest leaders in both finance and technology, including representatives from the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. Now, getting the US and China to agree on what to have for lunch is often a struggle, much less getting them to agree on anything involving technology. Never forget, most conservatives in this country accuse China of spying on the United States using the popular social media platform TikTok. But in this conference, the US and China did agree, probably reluctantly on our part, to find global consensus on how to tackle some of the most complex questions around AI, including how to develop it safely and regulate it. Now that actually makes sense, because as much as anybody else in the world, China stands to lose just as much as the US if automation and AI wipe out 3/4 of our workforce. Keep in mind, China depends on our exported goods and our exported workforce just as much as anybody. But here's what I'm thinking. We're standing on the cusp of maybe the single most defining moment in human history. And we're discussing how to kick the can further down the road? Knowing full well we're standing right at the dead end? Right at the cul-de-sac? Again, I get the resistance to change. I get the resistance to accept that this supposedly great financial institution that we call the capitalist society of the United States of America has reached its end. But it's time we face facts. We've kicked the socialist can down the road long enough. Something that should have happened 90 years ago under FDR now has to happen if we are to advance further as a society, as a nation, and as a species. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the first to introduce Social Security and socialist programs into this country. He wanted to do more, but met resistance from pretty much every big power player at the time. John F. Kennedy had wanted to abolish capitalism entirely, and I firmly believe that's what got him killed. Bernie Sanders wanted to institute socialism into the United States back in 2016, and the DNC fucked him out of the presidential race entirely as a result. Every time a person in any semblance of power has wanted to wean our nation off the capitalist teat, they're met with heavy resistance from other, more powerful people. All Elon Musk was doing with his comments was letting people know, you can't make us progress, and we will fight you if you try. Or as Planet Palantir, I'm pronouncing that wrongly, I know I am, as its head, Alex Karp, put it, the only reason Musk says these things is because he has no product. Ouch. that may be the most telling thing to take away from this entire conference. Well, that and the United States and China actually agreeing on something. I mean, when was the last time that happened? And for those that are going to hit me up in my comments or in my email, raul@theclosingtag.com, defending your favorite billionaire, whomever that may be, and calling me a communist. First of all, socialist, not communist, as I outlined last week. There's a big difference. Second of all, the billionaires you're so quick to defend and say that they need more of your money for themselves and less money for those struggling to feed their families wouldn't waste 2 squirts of piss to help you if you were on fire. The rich and powerful have been playing this divide and conquer shit to accumulate more power and more wealth for themselves for centuries. Sadly, you are just too blind to see it. But let me know what you guys think. Is Elon Musk right? Or are we already too late to prevent a humanitarian collapse of historic proportions? Do you have faith that our elected officials will actually do the right thing? I want to thank you guys again for listening, downloading, watching, donating, doing all the things to help the podcast. Your support does not go unnoticed. I do apologize that this episode was a little bit short, but I kind of like to think of this as like an emergency pod because, hey, guess what? Elon Musk proved me right. Never thought you'd hear that on this podcast, did you? So thank you. I'll provide a link to the CNBC article, that quote that I clipped the quotes from Elon Musk from, in the description of this video. I will be back with a sports pod on Wednesday. I promise that will be a little bit longer. And a life tip pod on Friday. I can't make it such guarantees on that one. So until then, take care. And remember, as always, guys, as I try to find the thing, there we go. Remember to include your closing tags. This has been a Galactic Digital Studios production.